So we've got some questions that people have given us ahead of today. And our first question is going to be read by Felix over here. I'll just pass you the mic.
Before I ask this question, I think I speak on behalf of the community when I say we're all honoured to have you here and overwhelmed with gratitude to yourself and the organisers for facilitating this space. Could you speak on your experience working with UK politicians? Do you sense that they are genuinely empathetic to the cause with actual desire to act for Palestine? Do they have an understanding of the true gravity of the situation?
Oh, you had to ask that question? Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Well, it's not about empathy for politicians. It's about understanding. So the question, do they understand the situation? And the answer is yes, they do. So no one of them, and we tell them that, can ever claim they didn't know. They know. They know what Israel is doing. They know what has been happening for a long time. However, are they acting according to their knowledge and according to their principles and their commitments and obligations? That's a different question. And here you have a spectrum of politicians. There are some in Westminster who are very principled. And they want to see the UK acting as a responsible, grown-up, in the room sort of government and upholder of international law. There are. But there are others who for them, this is a calculation, a cost-benefit calculation. Personally, for them. What do I gain and what do I lose? And in that, the judgment is not how do I uphold values or international law. The judgment is different. And unfortunately, so far, some politicians in this country believe that for them supporting what is right would come at a personal cost for them. And that's why you see hesitation in taking the right move. Now, here comes your role. We need to reassure them because they are convinced that actually if they support Palestine, they will lose their seats, or they will lose their status, or they will lose. My only answer to you, make them believe if they take the right decision, they are rewarded, not punished. Thank you.
Thank you. So our second question is from Lisa.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zomlot, for being with us here today. A lot of us are wondering what's next when a ceasefire is agreed, and may that be soon. What is your hope for the people of Gaza and the West Bank, and how a future Palestinian state will be realized?
What's next is a permanent and immediate ceasefire. That's what's next. Before that, we cannot do anything. There is genocide being committed. That's why from day one, our energy is going to achieve a ceasefire. And that's why all the demos you've seen, all the pressure, all the work was demanding one thing, ceasefire. Because without achieving ceasefire, how do you begin to heal the wounded? How do you begin to rebuild what Israel has destroyed? How do you begin to deliver the most needed humanitarian aid? Dr. Qurashi will tell you that with this bombardment and the way Israel is doing it, you cannot begin really the process of. But your question about what next after reaching a ceasefire, I think what next is this. We should never, ever accept to go back to the status quo ante. That's over. To the 6th of October, that should be over. We should move, of course, hopefully, Ya Rab, we reach a permanent ceasefire soonest. But once we do that, there are 3 parallel processes we need to go through. The first is to make sure that we attend to our people. It's catastrophic in every sense. We need to cuddle our 17,000 children the orphans. We have to embrace them. And we must make sure that their hearts are filled with love, the love of their community, the love of their people. Like I was cuddled. I am the son of the first Nakba. I was born in a tent, in a refugee camp. And I know what my community did to me and for me. You know, as if one mother is not enough. I had 20 mothers in the camp. Oh my God, that was the nightmare. But these 20 mothers raised me. It was a collective responsibility, collective love, collective sense of community, collective experience. We should do the same. That's how. And education. We were talking about the importance of education after our experience of losing our homes and farms and factories in 1948. Then I'll tell you a story. My grandmother, who was unlike my grandfather was more, the sentimental person, into land and his farms. My grandmother was a businesswoman, more into trade and deals. So as they were leaving, forced to leave their town, Simsim, which is close to Asqalan. And my father was, with my grandmother. He was born already inside 48 areas. My grandmother was negotiating with her neighbor who wants some cash if they're gonna trade off, and she takes the land that is next to her land. And what that tells you, my grandmother was absolutely certain that her removal from her own land and her own house is a matter of a week or two. So she was making deals as they were leaving. But then my grandmother learned the lesson, the hard lesson. And for that deal to happen, she had to sell most of her gold to buy the land. The man gave her a bit of discount. Clever, her neighbor. But she learned the hard lesson. Many, many years later, she kept whatever left of her gold, and she sold it only when I went to Birzeit University. That was the only time she sold whatever left of her gold. But my grandmother, her name was Husam, Allah yarhamha, she died. Yes, and yes, it's a good investment. But Husam, my grandmother, is the grandmother of almost every Palestinian. That's our grandmothers, that's our mothers, that's our community. That's how they reacted to the catastrophic events of the 1948, that we invest in the human being. And why I'm saying all that? There is a huge task for us to make sure that our next generation is cared for, is attended to. Big task. But also there is another task to give them a different future. And the only possibility of give them a different future is to give them hope. And hope requires political horizon, political hope. Because our people are not lacking natural resources. We have one of the best land there is. We lack no human resources. You know how proud I am as an ambassador wherever I go. Here I see Dr. Muhammad in front of me. And I see many doctors. I just sat one day to count how many doctors, Palestinian consultants at the highest level in the NHS. I got to the number 550 Palestinians who are now literally saving your lives. How many Palestinian professors only in the UK, let alone when I was in the US as an ambassador. Wherever I go, Palestinians are scientists, inventors, poets, writers, even in NASA. So this nation is capable to actually govern themselves and become a real light in the world and in the region. But for that to happen, we have to move straight forward to a situation of liberation, of ending this occupation, of making sure that we have a state of our own, with Jerusalem as its capital, and with implementing the right of return. We should not accept peace processes, khalas, enough processes, enough negotiations, enough all of that. And that's why we say now, once a ceasefire is achieved, we straightforward go to the Security Council, a global recognition of the state of Palestine and of the borders of the state of Palestine, bilateral recognitions by the US, by the UK, and all these few countries who didn't recognize, and a very short period of time of backrolling occupation, rid of occupation, and all this does not need negotiations. This needs enforcement. And I believe now the world realizes that without enforcing the will on Israel, Israel will continue a perpetual occupation forever. But we, through you, got to gather that international energy towards enforcing an end to Israel's occupation of Palestinian land. By the way, people talk about two-state solution. What two-state solution? There is already a state called Israel, and there is already a state called Palestine, by the way. It's recognized by the majority of the world, and it has a seat in the UN. But one state occupies the other state. So all what we need to talk about is that Israel just leaves the hell out of the territory of the state of Palestine.
We have a final question from the floor from Chris.
Thanks for coming today. It's been very inspiring. All the panelists have been very inspiring and informative. And we've heard about your vision, Dr. Zomlot. What can we do, and this is important for us, I think, what can we do as individuals and a campaign group beyond marches, social media posts and donations to help achieve your vision? Perhaps collective vision, really.
Question is for me?
Yes.
Well, I'll pass the microphone to my colleagues, the panelists, because they should also share some of these thoughts with me. Then I'll come at the end. Can I seek your help and support in answering that very important?
One of the reasons I do what I do now, I feel very uncomfortable being up here presenting what I do. It's always been a very personal thing. But after what happened on October the 7th, I have to put myself outside my comfort zone. And one of the reasons I need to do this is because we just have to change the narrative. The narrative is still a very skewed narrative. And even in publications you would think would be more sympathetic, even as recently as 6-8 weeks ago, are portraying a very different narrative. So what we've got to do is I've got to put myself outside my comfort zone and do things like this. But I think we just need to put the narrative on track. We need to talk to people. That's how this is going to happen. More than that, I'm not a politician, but I think, that the power of the people cannot be overstated. As Dr. Zomlot said, this is what started the demise of apartheid in South Africa. So in many ways, it's an honor and a privilege to be amongst so many sympathetic people. But we need this to grow, and we need this to grow. And I say this, I gave a talk at a university recently, and I say this very carefully, that we need an educated response. And by that I mean it's very easy for when I was younger, I'd get very passionate, and passion can turn into shouting and screaming, and that is the narrative that the press want to see. But what we've got to teach our kids to do is take a step back and have a very considered approach. And the example I'll give you is that, out of all the politicians that actually took the time to come and invite us to Southern Commons and go through what happened, was somebody called Alicia Cairns, that you might know. She's a Tory MP. But I think she's chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. But I don't know if you saw on Twitter her takedown of Elon Levy. Did you see that? And it was almost like she was playing chess. There was no aggression, there was no shouting, there was no screaming, but there was just chess pieces being played and just luring somebody into a situation. And guess what? He's gone now, as I understand it. He's now resigned or has been let go. So I think the point I'm making is, and people look at you're a doctor. I want to do something. I wish I could be. Everybody in this room has a responsibility, but also a role to play. I'm not a politician, so we need people like Dr. Zomlot. I'm not a lawyer. Somebody earlier said that she was a trainee lawyer. We need the lawyers to come and make the rules and the laws that are unbreakable. We need engineers to, inshallah, rebuild Gaza. So change the narrative and everybody play a role, but do it in a very calm and considered way so we don't feed into the narrative that the press really want to see.
What I firmly believe that we need to stop doing is capitulating. I think that there has been enough of people trying to prove their humanity when you are dealing with Zionism, when you are dealing with Israel, when you're dealing with the genocidal states that are the UK and the US with their complicity, there is no better nature to appeal to. We need to make sure that there is no more business as usual, and that politicians and that weapons manufacturers and that lawmakers cannot just sit there in the comfort of their homes. We need to put ourselves on the line. And recently, I think the movement went to Tobias Elwood's house, yeah? And this needs to continue. There are arms factories near us that need to be shut down. Palestine Action does it, and I think that it needs to expand. I think that we need to be targeting directly the institutions that fund these genocides, that arm these genocides, and there needs to be no more capitulation, no more attempts to, no more begging to, because the Palestinian cause speaks for itself. We just have to organize and do it.
Well, Chris, my answer to you is this. You've already made it. And I have witnessed over the last 6 months how much they have, and they are the powerful. They have tried to intimidate you, to silence you, and they failed. They failed miserably. And remember where the UK government was on the 7th of October. It was carte blanche for genocide. One sentence: Israel has the unequivocal right to defend itself. That's it. No qualification for that. No need to respect international law, no nothing. And remember, only a week and a half ago, the UK government voted for an immediate ceasefire in the Security Council. That's because of you. That's because of this power and the pressure and the demos and the civic activism and the letters. And despite the many, many intimidations, remember Swalla Braverman calling you hate marches? She's gone, you stayed, right? And believe you me, the discussion about the UK ending its arms trade to Israel, exportation to Israel, is very serious because of your pressure. And if that happens, it would be historic. Historic in every sense of the word. However, we need to keep going, unintimidated, unsilenced, organized, to go all the way. My biggest fear, Chris, and I'm speaking to all of you, my biggest fear is that this unprecedented energy, your energy, the unprecedented change in the public opinion, it's a coup d'etat in the public opinion. And not just in the UK, all over the world. And in the US. 80% of Democrats in the US think Biden was wrong in the way. 80%. My biggest fear is that this is not going to be sustainable. And the one thing, oh, I felt that. The one thing, my friend, I would call you on, I would urge you to do, don't stop. Go with us all the way to a free
Palestine!
free.
Palestine!
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So just one final question that a lot of us are asking, just to end on a positive. You touched on the resilience of the Palestinian people, and we've all seen that. We've all witnessed, haven't we, the resilience and the dignity that the Palestinian people have shown, and the way that that shines like a light in this darkness. And that not only inspires all of us, but it also shows a hope for humanity. Like you said, that the Palestinian people are showing the best of humanity. And so I just wanted to ask you to end with a story of hope for us from Gaza, something that's inspired you, something that's given you hope.
The grandfather? The soul of my soul. Oh, there are many of such. Of course, and you know, the grandfather, the soul of my soul, remember him, the man with the beard. and with the turban. You know, that image was vilified, the image of that man in the Western Hemisphere for decades. That, you know, these kind of men are savages. And then this man comes and tells the world that if there is a definition of humanity, it's him. If there is a standard for love, it's him. If what it means to be a grandfather, it's him. So images that came out of Gaza, unbelievable. That girl by the name of Alma, she was 9 years old. Her home was bombarded, completely flattened. They were staying in the basement. And the rescue teams, it was at the beginning, and I will never forget her voice. The rescue teams were first to arrive to her, and she was shouting, "Do not get me out except if you get all of my family, my parents, my siblings, all of them." And she kept shouting until the rescue team told her, "All of your family is out." She said, "Let me hear them one by one. I'm not gonna leave unless I make sure." This is the Palestinian spirit. This is the Palestinian. And this is the human spirit. It's not just Palestinian. This is the devotion and the selflessness and the sense of solidarity. And that's why, and I know, I should know because I was one of those almas in my in my experience. But wait, one day I will remind you that Alma will grow up and will become a lawyer or will become a university professor. You may even have her here speaking to you. I know that the main source of hope for me is the sheer love I was given and the sheer love I have for this most exceptional of people, the Palestinian people. And I'll tell you one thing, I've said it before, we might not be the greatest nation on earth, but I know of no other nation that is greater than us. Really, I don't. I don't. A Nakba and the Naksa and 67 and 52 and 73 and Israel bombing here and bombing there and 5 wars in Gaza and all that. And we still produce the lowest illiteracy rate in the world. And we produce the highest per capita PhD graduate in the world. Now you tell me that doesn't give me hope. It gives me a lot of hope, a lot of certainty, a lot of strength, a lot of power. And as I said before, we have gone through this. I assure you we will recover. We will recover. We will rise. I just hope the world will recover. The West will recover. I really do hope because, you know, this is very serious. We will recover because we have gone through recoveries. You know, we even have gone through resurrection. Why are you laughing? Jesus is one of us. He is. He is. Can you dispute that? He was born in Bethlehem. And by the way, his story, he is Palestinian, of course, and we are so proud of his story and so proud of our story. If you go back 2,000 years ago, you will see that the story of Jesus is the story of the Palestinian people. It's the same. The Roman emperor was looking for all children to kill, right? Same story. And there was a priest, a Bethlehem priest during Christmas, who did a sermon and said, if Jesus was born today, he would be born under the rubble. If you've seen that priest, that hero of ours, Mundar Ishaq from Bethlehem. So, but the one thing we want to make sure is we don't have to resurrect and be killed and then come back from the dead. We don't have to recover after being genocided. We want to make sure that this is the last time. We will not allow for this to happen ever again. And we will go from there not to manage the situation, but to uproot the root cause of it, which is the occupation, the colonization, the racism, the apartheid, the besiegement, to liberate our land and our people, and to give the best people there is the opportunity to build their own state. And we are absolutely certain that state will be exceptional. And we invite you to Jerusalem. We'll invite you to Beit Lahab, inshallah. And to the beautiful Gaza. It's gorgeous. Thank you.